Hey, welcome to Sports Unfolded NHL Ranking Show. I am your host, Eric, with my main man, Ron, my hockey guru. How are you today?
I'm doing okay, but I feel like I have a sheet of ice behind me.
Oh, look at that. Because you're in the hockey spirit. You're in
Yes.
the hockey spirit. I love it. Got a little glow tee in the background. So let's bring up that as we do each and every week, we review our hockey rankings, our top 10 now. So, really excited about that. But let's bring those up and see where we were at before we start discussing each team. And at number 10, we had the Minnesota Wild. At number 9, making the cracking into the list.
Oh.
The Seattle Kraken at number 9. At 8, the New York Rangers. At 7, the Dallas Stars. At 6, the Tampa Bay Lightning. At 5, the Winnipeg Jets. At 4, the New Jersey Devils. At 3, Carolina Hurricanes. And rounding out the top 2, Toronto at 2, and Boston Bruins remaining at number 1. Just a phenomenal season they're having so far. Ron, a little controversy as always when
As
it comes
always.
to the top 10, but a lot of people questioned the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights were not in.
Okay, I'm already tired of the Vegas Golden Knight fans wishing that the team was a top 10 team. Like they just got done with a 1-win, 2-loss week again, and they expect them to be in. I mean, come on, they're playing horrible. If they didn't have such a great start, they would not be in first place in their division. And I don't think that's going to be much longer.
All right. Well, I guess we can see, like we said, we try to break it down per week and then kind of where it goes from there. So we're not going based off of their rankings or their records. We're
Right.
going more off of how they've played in the last
How good they are.
Yeah.
Those right now are the top 10 teams in the league today.
I like it. All right, let's start off with that number 10 team then, and that's the Minnesota Wild. They're 25-14-4. They're a plus 18 on the season, 13-8-1 at home, 12-6-3 on the road, 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now. Scored 138 goals, which is 16th, but only given up 120, 5th overall. So defensively, very good when it comes to that. Last 3 games, they've one against the Islanders, one against Arizona, and one against the Washington Capitals. Little stretch here on the road at Carolina, at Florida, and at Tampa Bay in the next 3 games. Drill the Krill, we know what he's been able to do. Leads the team in points, goals, and assists. 52 points, 25 goals, 27 assists. Zuccarello, second on the team, 44 points, 18 goals, 22 assists. Marc-Andre Fleury, again, having a solid year, 14-8-3 with a 2.86 goals against, a 905 save percentage. They get a backup goalie, though, as well. Philip Gustafsson.
Yeah, Gustafsson's playing well.
Yeah, 11-6-1, 2.16 goals against, a 926 save percentage. Phenomenal.
Yeah, he's second in goals against in the league, and he's 4th in save percentage. And he's been the reason why they've kind of had a resurgence. They started off very slow, and then they've been split in time between Fleury and Gustafsson, and he's really stepped up. And Fleury has played much better, of late than he did when he first started. And a lot has to do with that defensive core. And, like they've been like most of the players have been playing well, but they definitely need to shore up some spots on their lineup. And like Kalen Addison, he's struggling. He's a -9 on defense right now. I mean, he's putting up some points. He's got 3 goals, 19 assists, but that -9 is glaring, and they need to shore that up. If they can't have him do it, they're going to have to make a move for a defenseman, and probably along the lines of another sentiment, because they're not very deep as far as center. So, I mean, if this team expects to do anything in the playoffs, you should expect them in the next 3 weeks or so to shore up that and make those weak positions a little stronger.
Yeah, so obviously, again, when we talk about 16th in goals for, so they definitely need to get some scoring or
Yeah.
scorer. Again, very good defensively. Jared Spurgeon as a
Yes.
plus 20 on this team, third on time on ice with 21.10
Right.
seconds per game. So they're getting production from the defensemen. Again, goalies, I like the split. I think both of them are playing very well, but you have to see them get some points. That's going to be key, crucial,
Right.
especially in a playoff push.
Right. That's why I said, another defenseman to, you know, replace Addison because he's not getting the job done defensively. And, and that will take care of any kind of problems, in the pipes, which I don't see any problems really. But that's going to help clear it out in front of the net so that way teams aren't getting, dirty goals on them. And that seems to be how it's happening. And again, a fourth line center or a third line, improving on a third line forward, would actually help this team. And that's probably where they're going to head because obviously you don't need a first or second line center with they have Goudreau, they have Steele, and they have oh my god, I can't think of his name, Kirill and Spurgeon, and a bunch of these guys are really chipping in. Eriksson Ek has been playing well, So if you get a third or fourth line forward on this team that can shore up some really big problems, and they have some guys that are really not playing their position too, and that kind of cleans it up if you can get a guy in his right position, and some of these guys that are minuses right now are playing out of position, and that's really hurting them when it comes time for playoffs.
Yeah, and again, they're a playoff caliber team, so we know that.
Right.
Diggs, thanks for joining. By the way, by the way, BTW. All right, Diggs. So,
See what you
see
did
that?
there.
See that? At number 9, the Seattle Kraken, who's a team I'm really excited about. 26-14-4, plus 22, 10-9-2 at home, 16-5-2 on the road, 8-2 in their last 10. They've lost their last 2 games. They've scored 161 goals on the season, which is 4th overall, 139 goals against, which is 13. So we talk about the opposite here. Defensively, need some improvement with Seattle. But last 3 games, they beat Chicago 8-5, lost to Tampa Bay 4-1, and lost to Edmonton 5-2. Next 3 games are at home: New Jersey, Colorado, Vancouver. Colorado very sneakily climbing up this list, so that's going to be interesting there. Andre Burakovsky, 37 points, 25 assists, leads the team in both those categories. Jared McCann, 22 goals, leads the team in scoring. But Matty Beniers,
Beniers.
17 goals, 36 points, number 1 with all in the NHL amongst rookies, second on the team in points. So you think about what they're getting production wise from a very young player, which is probably important. They're an expansion team, right? Year 2. So getting some of these young guys in the draft and how they've been able to put them in the lineup and get instances of success. Again, 26-14-4. Very good for Seattle. And getting good goaltending play from Martin Jones, 21-6-3, 2.84 goals against, and a .895 save percentage. That obviously has to improve. But what do you like about the Kraken?
I like their depth, to be honest with you, especially up the middle. I mean, you're looking at a team. Well, first of all, you got Matty Beniers, who's having an outstanding season for himself. This kid is going to be a star in this league, and that is apparent. He's making everybody around him better. I mean, when you're looking at the production, you know, on his left and right side, and then up the middle, that puts everybody else down a slot, and it's putting them where they all belong. And when you're looking at Yanni Gord's numbers and Schwartz's numbers, even though Schwartz is a negative, a minus on the season, but they got solid depth on that in that center position. And they
I don't
have
know why.
Geeky and Donato.
I don't know why I went right to Spaceballs though with the Schwartz. Sorry, I had to say it. But go ahead, continue.
No, but that
It's
they're
going to be one
really
of those shows,
strong.
Ron.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But it's like that center position. When you're putting players in their proper spots, it's making the other players better on those lines that they're supposed to be. So instead of having say a Yanni Gord, centering, the top line, you put him at the number 2 spot. Here he is with the 23 assists, and he's making his wingers better. And the same thing with Beniers. They're all in that right spot that's making the other players better around them. And when you're seeing a guy like Beniers light it up with 17 goals, 19 assists, and a solid +9 for the young kid,
Yeah.
I mean, that takes notice, and the other players are just rallying behind that. And you're getting guys that are chipping in from everywhere and all lines. They're all contributing. When you look at the points on this team, I mean, they're just stout numbers.
Yeah. I
And
mean, fourth
those,
overall in the NHL and for
yeah,
a young team. So let me ask you this question, Ron. Can I ask you why it seems like expansion teams in the NHL are more successful early? Like you've seen this with other leagues where a lot of these expansion teams, it takes years upon years before they're actually in a position. But yet in hockey, it seems like you can get there pretty quickly.
yeah, because what they do in the NHL with that expansion draft, you're getting quality players, and you're getting some of these players that teams know they're going to be in trouble with the salary cap, especially. So when they have to put guys available that are really good hockey players, but because their salaries are going to either expire or it's just too much for the team and they have somebody else that they need to sign and they want to get rid of somebody, those teams can pick up those players, kind of like Vegas did with Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
But now when you looked at Seattle, they didn't try to do that. They made some deals. They got some players, but they traded those players away to other teams or possibly even the same team. And so they put themselves in a position where they can draft players, more quality spots in the draft, and got some good prospects in that expansion draft that are really good players that the teams just couldn't hang on to. They can only protect so many players, and there you have a guy running the team, Ron Francis, who's basically in my eyes kind of like a hockey genius, to be honest with you. He portrayed that kind of a style on ice, and he's taken it into the front office. And frankly, this team is in good hands with Francis. It really is.
And I will say this, the Western Conference not as difficult this year so far. Some of these teams that we expected to be better, this is a good opportunity for Seattle, right, to hold on to kind of a top
Absolutely,
10 spot.
absolutely, it is. I mean, they're playing so well that you know I don't I don't see them floundering around. I think they look like they're going to be a playoff team, and this could only do wonders for that Western Conference. If Seattle
Yeah,
is this good.
yeah, it's a viable team,
Yeah.
right? So at number 8, the New York Rangers, 25, 13, and 7, plus 24 on the season, 11, 8, and 4 at home, 14 and 5 on the road, 6, 2, and 2 in their last 10. They are on a 1-game winning streak currently. 144 goals for, which is 12th overall. 120, they're tied for 5th when it comes to defensively giving up points. Last 3 wins against Dallas, 2-1 in overtime, a loss to Montreal, and then a win against Colorado, 3-1. Next 3 games: Boston, Florida, and at Toronto. So a tough stretch here. I know
Yeah.
Florida's not playing as well, but that Toronto and sandwiched in between Boston and Toronto there. Panarin, we already talked about last show, 47 points. Um, but they're getting depth from all across the board. I'm gonna butcher his name. Was it Zimbe? Ja? I know it's sir. I know that's
Zibanejad?
Sabenajad, 46 points. He's got 20 goals. Adam Fox, 36 assists, leads the team. He's got 45 points, and he leads the team in plus minus at 19.
Yeah.
Shesterkin is having another one of his solid years, 27 and 6, a 2.43 goals against, 918 save percentage. I did want to go before we get into this. Chris Kreider and his success last season and what he did, 52 goals. He was third on the team in points. He's currently fifth. He's only got 19 goals, 30 points. Is
Yeah,
there a
and
reason for his struggles?
look, I mean, when you're talking only 19 goals, that's pretty good. He's probably going to have somewhere close to a 40 goal season, which is probably a normal number, you know. Um, I think he was just right place, right time every time last season. And, you know, so if he comes down, scores, gives you 35 to 40, 2 goals this season, that is what you need from Chris Kreider. That's what you need because you got a lot of talent on this team and they are spreading it around. And when you mentioned Zibanejad, he's at a point a game pace right now. I mean, he's got 20 goals, 26
Yeah.
assists, and you know, and in 45 games played. I mean, that's pretty good. So you're getting more goals from elsewhere. So the fact that Chris Kreider isn't putting the puck in at the pace as he was last year, that doesn't really mean anything. They're just keying in on him, and everybody else is reaping the benefits. And that's what a guy like Chris Kreider can do because he can score goals, so you got to pay attention to him. And now you have other guys stepping up. You have Kako with having a pretty good season. With 9 goals, chipping in from they're getting goals from everywhere, and that's the important thing. And when you have a guy like Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren on the blue line, I mean, that is pretty stout. I mean, they're gonna eat up most of the minutes, and they're gonna make things much easier for the team to transition into offense, and that's what they've been doing. That
Yeah.
transition is just superb.
Yeah. I think to your point, look, you get tape on a guy, and we know the analytics now and how teams look at, other opponents differently,
Yeah,
right? You're trying to stop him from becoming that disruptor when it comes to goal scoring. But to your point, if
right,
other guys are able to chip in, which New
right,
York, the Rangers are able to do,
and
that's
it's
more
simple as
beneficial.
just on the power play. He's obviously going to demand a lot of interest. And so when they're cheating over to him on the power play, that means somebody else is going to be wide open. And then you're going to have another guy that can clean it up. So, you know, just, it's just, trying to get, the numbers from somewhere. And if you continue cheating over to one player and somebody else is going to continue to clean it up, then it's all going to be working out fine. And that's what's happening with the Rangers because they have that skill where somebody else can clean up those goals.
Right. And again, very deep team when it comes to look, they made a big playoff run last year. So the
Yeah,
experience is there. They have the goaltender. So I think that's always going to be beneficial when you got these tight races later on in the
yeah.
season. But eighth overall, is this not a disappointing spot right now for the Rangers? Would you expect them to be higher on the list?
I expect them to be higher, but I also expect some of the other players to stop playing better defensively. Like when you're looking at Panarin, look, he's having a great season in 12 goals, 35 assists, but he is a minus. And you got to clean up your own end, and that's one of the players that needs to be better in his own end. And I know you don't expect guys like that to be super defensive, but but he and Trocheck, that when they're minuses, and Truba, those guys should not be minuses, and they are. And there's a bunch of guys on the team. There's about 8 or 9 players that are minuses that you're not really expecting anybody really to be a minus on the Rangers because they're so deep. But that's what's happening. So they have a couple of lines that are going well, but they got to clean up their own end on some of them. And that's why, when you look at, oh my God, I can't even think of his name, Shesterkin, his goals against are coming down, and the
Yeah.
team is
Yeah.
playing better. So
Yes.
it's at 2.83 now.
2.43.
2.43. That's
Yeah.
what but he's 10th in the league.
Yeah.
And he was out of the top 10 for a while. And it's starting to come down, and now you see them starting to clean up those mistakes and
playing better in front of him. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to take. Some of the players just need to do a better job in their own end.
Excellent. So your favorite fans of all time, the Dallas Stars, they come in at number 7, 26, 12, and 7, plus 37 on the season in point differential. Home record 12, 5, and 3, away record 14, 7, and 4, 6, 3, and 1 in their last 10. They're on a 1-game win streak. They've scored 156 points, which is 5th overall, and 119 goals against, which is 4th. So in the top 5 in both those categories. Last 3 games, they lost to the Rangers 2-1 in overtime, Calgary 6-5, and then beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-0. Next 3 games at San Jose, at LA, and home for Arizona. So a nice little West Coast trip here that could obviously help them. We talked about Jason Robinson and what kind of season he's having. 60 points leads the team, 29 goals, 31 assists, all leads the team. Joe Pavlowski, plus 31. He's 3rd on the team in points with 43 as well. We've talked about Ottinger and the phenomenal season he's having, a 26-4 record with a 2.21 goals against, 926 save percentage. What a great job. This team also, Ron, in power play percentage, 27.1%, which is 3rd, in penalty kills percentage, 82.8, which is 5th. So they're in the top 5 in both those categories. Hence why you see them in the top 5 in goals for and goals against. So the Dallas, no problem.
I lost my headset for a minute. I kind of unplugged myself.
Oh, very good. So they're in the top 5 in both penalty kills, power plays, top 5 in both goals scored and goals against. Right. So they're getting it, contributing from all factors. They're scoring, they're defensively. So what is the reason why they're 7th right now on this list, Ron?
Well, they're 7th because, look, they don't have that sustainability right now. Like they're on a little downturn, but I do believe that this might be one of the best teams in the West. And I know I get on the Dallas Stars all the time. It's like, but we don't give them enough credit. And maybe I don't, because they've been basically 2 guys for most of the season. But what you're starting to see now is other guys are contributing. So again, like you mentioned, top 5 in those areas. You're looking at that power play. Well, it isn't just Robertson. Yes, he has the 29 goals, but there are other guys on this team that are really, and Joe Pavelski is one of those guys. He's a really good player, and he's really starting to play well now, as is Jamie Benn. Those 2 guys, along with Tyler Seguin on that power play, that's a devastating power play when you can put those 4 guys on the ice, and who do you cover? It's that good. And then you have, some younger players like Hintz, who's, also a plus 23. He's averaging 1.1 points per game, if I'm not mistaken. So, they're getting scoring now spread out more evenly, and those other guys are starting to contribute just as much as Robertson. And and when you have that, that's pretty good. The only thing that you know I look at it and it kind of glares when you look. I mean, most good teams, their defensemen are the league leader, are the team leaders in plus minus. That isn't the case here. They have two forwards that are leaders in plus minus. So what that's telling me is they have a cast of defensemen that are playing pretty equal minutes, and there's no dominant defenseman on this team. And when I look and I see Essa Lindell and Colin Miller as their best two defensemen, I think that is where they need to improve. They need a guy that is just going to be so dominant as a defenseman. And I think until they have that, and they did have that, but they let him go. But once if they can make a move and they can get that defenseman, that guy, like an Adam Fox, or a Kale McCarr. You're not gonna find a guy that can score like Kale McCarr, but you can get that guy.
Yeah.
And if they do, this team is going to go on a deep run.
Yeah. So can we say Ottinger was probably the best goaltender in the playoffs last season?
I would say that.
Right.
Yes.
So again, if you can get that kind of production, get, a defenseman by the trade deadline that's going to contribute and be that guy to get you a plus minus that's positive.
And there's going to be one there.
They're a very good team. And then Robinson, if he can continue this pace, I mean, he's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah, he is.
And it's going to be interesting to see if he can continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you need like the guys like Jamie Benn and Hintz. Those guys need to keep contributing so that way they can make a deep run. Because if you only have one line in the playoffs, well, you've seen what happened last season. They didn't get by the first round.
Yeah.
So you need a guy that's going to, even up the depth of scoring, and right now they're getting it from everywhere right now, but they do need a defenseman, and they do need that. That's basically what's holding me back from keeping this team as a contender.
Gotcha. So at 6, Tampa Bay Lightning, 28-13-1, plus 30 overall on the season. Home record 17-4-1, away record 11-9, 8-2 in their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak, second hottest team on this list right now. Goals for 152 goals, which is 7th. 122 goals against, which is 7th. In the last 3 games, they've beaten Vancouver 5-4, St. Louis 4-2, and Seattle 4-1. Next 3 games at Vancouver, at Edmonton, and at Calgary. So making a trip across the border. Again, this team's been in so many playoff runs in 3 of the last, the last 3 years in the Stanley Cup. And the fans that we've posted this to have just basically been so upset that they're not higher. But is this a lot about what they've done in the past on what they're thinking, their mentality versus what they are today, right now, currently?
Yeah, I mean, they want them to be higher, but who do you put them ahead? You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, Tampa Bay is a good team. And if you did not notice, the top 8 remained the same.
Yeah.
Because they're all playing well. And we're finally getting some consistent hockey from these top teams other than the Boston Bruins. And here's Tampa Bay, 4-game winning streak, but when the other teams are playing just as well, it's hard to climb over those teams. And being number 6 right now is not a bad thing for Tampa Bay. It's not bad, especially when they're sitting just in 3rd place in their division alone.
Yeah. So again, we talk about some of the players. Kucherov, we've talked about him several shows now. 62 points, 45 assists, leads the team. Braden Point, leads the team in goals with 25. Steven Stamkos, second in the team in points with 49. So we're getting that production from those guys. Vasilevsky, 20, 10, and 1, 2.45 goals against, a 918 save percentage. So he's starting to climb up, like we
Yeah,
talked
he's
about
starting to climb up
Shesterkin as
well.
well. It took
Yep.
them a little bit of time. They're second overall in power play percentage as well, 28.8 on the season. So Tampa lost you again. Tampa Bay. Again, Ron, is this team going to be able to make that deep run again, or is there something they need to do? Are they kind of that sixth best team in the league?
Well, I mean, it depends on Vasilevsky, really. When you look at what he's been doing, in his entire career, this year it was a very slow start for this team, and we kind of expected that. They've been in the Stanley Cup now for, it seems like, forever, and when you have these guys that are aging, and Vasilevsky is aging. Let's be real here. You got a lot of guys that are on the higher end of their career. Victor Hedman as well, Kucherov, the Stamkos. These guys have been around a long time. They played a lot of hockey in the last 3-4 years, and so it took them a little while to get out of the gate. But now they're out of the gate. They are just like passing people left and right, it seems. And, when it's all said and done, I think this team can make another run. But the problem is, when you're looking at the teams above you, that's going to be difficult because you still have Boston, Toronto, Carolina, New Jersey are all above you in the East. And then you have people on your tail like the New York Rangers and Washington and Pittsburgh. That is not an easy task for no team. None of those teams are going to have a cakewalk.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see if they can muster up some magic again. It's going to be very difficult too, right? Because they can't really make a lot of moves. They've got some salary
Yeah.
that they've paid out now that ultimately is going to cost them. Excuse me.
Yeah.
When
No,
it comes
you're
to
right.
that piece, so they can't get younger because I mean they'd have to give one of their top veterans, and that doesn't make sense.
And you can't right now.
Yeah,
When you have your guys that, like Cicerelli just got a contract. He's only played 19 games so far this season, so we don't even know what's going to happen with him. Um, is he gonna start playing some
meaningful minutes
meaningful
and
games and minutes? And yeah, it's like, so that takes away from that depth, and you're looking at Stamkos, Braden Point at the center ice position, and so Ross Colton is the other guy on your team, and Nemesnikov. So you have four guys that have been playing a lot of center ice for you without Anthony Cirelli as he would normally be. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do to improve on their team going into a playoffs. I mean, we only have about another
yeah,
month or so.
yeah, season's half over, which is
Yeah,
crazy to think about. And again, you got the All-Star break coming up shortly. I mean,
yeah.
that's less than a month away.
I,
So
I don't see this team going to the Stanley Cup again this year, because I think when you look at these teams, Boston, Toronto, and Carolina are all going to be able to make moves. They're all going to be able to. Tampa Bay might not be able to make as many as they want to,
yeah, it's going to be
and that's
interesting.
going to leave them out into the cold. To be honest
So
with you.
we're on our top five. So let's review real quick. At 10, Minnesota Wild. At 9, the Seattle Kraken. At 8, the New York Rangers. At 7, the Dallas Stars. And Tampa Bay rounds out that top 10 there at 6th. So we're on to our number 5 team. And this team is very quietly having a very good season. When we talk about production wise, 29, 15, and 1, a plus 30 overall, 17, 6, and 0 at home, 12, 9, and 1 on the road, 8 and 2 in their last 10. They're on a 1-game losing streak. 148 goals for, which is 10th. Third in goals against at 118. So defensively, this team's very, very good. Last
Yeah.
three, last
No,
three
go ahead.
games. Oh, go ahead. Last three
No, no.
games, they beat Pittsburgh 4-1, Arizona 2-1, and lost to Montreal 4-1. That's a bad loss there. Next three at Toronto, at Ottawa, and then at Philadelphia. And they don't play well on the road. So this is going to be a big test for this team.
Right.
Kyla Connor leads the team in points with 54. Mark Scheifele, 26 goals. Scheifele?
Yeah.
I was close.
I don't know how they get that, but that's what it is.
26 goals. And Josh Morrissey leads the team in assists with 41 and a +10 on the plus minus. Cole Perfetti, third in the NHL in rookies with points at 26. So they're getting production from some of the young players as well. And we've talked about Hellebuck in the goaltender he is, 22, 11, and 1, 2.42 goals against, a 924 save percentage. Defensively, this team's very strong, Ron. What else don't we know about the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, I mean, they're pretty balanced. By that, I mean, like, all of their lines are pretty much like carbon copies of themselves. Just different ages. I mean, a little bit of skill level, of course, as every team is. But when you look at the plus minuses, it really ranges. I mean, Perfetti leads with Morrissey with a +10. And then Neil Pionk is a -6. And that's the range. Everybody is in between there. So there's not really a lot of change when you put a line out there. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get a pretty steady dose of balanced attack, and it could come from anywhere at this point. And when you're getting guys like Cole Perfetti with a rookie season that is just pretty much immaculate. I mean, 20 goals, 26 assists, and a rookie that's a +10. That's fantastic. I mean, you're not going to get much better than that for a rookie, right? But the biggest difference is Josh Morrissey on defense. Like, I don't know if there's anybody that could have predicted this, to be honest with you. Everybody's talking about those defensemen like Makar and Fox and Yossi, and even to the point of McAvoy and Lindholm, and and it's Josh Morrissey's got 8 goals, 41 assists, and he's averaging more than a point a game, and he has completely turned around this defense. I mean, I would like to see him a higher plus minus, but this team, he's got this team in a good position right now. And I think he's got a little bit of momentum going, possibly for a Norris Trophy candidate. If he continues this, he could be in the mix.
Look, it's a team we didn't expect to be where they are right now, but they've stayed consistent, which has been remarkable. And then you think about the West again. Dallas is probably the best team in the West. You've put them, the Winnipeg Jets, ahead of them, and was there a reason for that?
Yeah, just the way they've been playing. They've been beating a lot of really solid teams, and like I said, it goes with that defense. They're playing so that way. Okay, let's clean up our own end, and then transition into some offense, and get some forechecking going, and you're not seeing like those really high end talented guys. You don't have, an Ovechkin or a Pasternak, but you have those guys that are just going to grind it out and play hard, the whole game, and they're not going to let games get away from them. And that to me is kind of the recipe to bring into the playoffs, to be honest with you. You got to scrape and scrap for everything you get in the playoffs, and that's this kind of a team.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to see if they can continue to, sustain this momentum throughout the rest of the season. Because then, again, the playoffs, anybody can win. But defensively, in hockey especially, I mean, if you can be a solid defensive team, you have an opportunity.
Right. Right. And if you have a goaltender, you have a really good opportunity. And they have a goaltender.
Yes, they do as well, right? So we talked about the goaltending, Hellebuck. So
He's
it's going
having
to
a
be
great year.
interesting. Yeah, it's going to see how that goes. So let's see about these New Jersey Devils who have seemed to turn it around again.
Yes, they did.
29, 12, and 3, a plus 40 overall on the season, 11, 10, and 2 at home. Now, they don't play very well at home. But then you listen to this road record, 18, 2, and 1. It's pretty remarkable. 7,
Yeah.
2, and 1 in their last 10. They're on a 5-game winning streak against, when we talked about the hottest teams on this list, the Devils are definitely that. 156 goals for, 116 goals against. They are fifth in goals scored and second in goals against. So they are playing very good defensively. Last 3 games, they've beaten Anaheim 6-2, the Kings 5-2, and San Jose 4-3 in a shootout. We talk about those Western Conference teams. Here's a good example of why we're saying they're nowhere near where the Eastern Conference is right now. That was a get-right road trip for them. Next 3
Absolutely.
games, at Seattle, who doesn't play well at home, and then Pittsburgh, and then the Golden Knights at home. So this is going to be an interesting one. Pitt's going to be a good game for them to see if they can continue this momentum. Jack Hughes, 55 points, 29 goals, having a great year. Dougie Hamilton, 28 assists. And then Ryan Graves, a plus 31 in the plus minus. Vanchek, the goaltender, Vanacek, 18, 5, and 2, 2.37 goals against, a 9.14 save percentage. We keep waiting for this team to kind of fall off. They're coming back. Ron, is this team sustainable? And why are they playing so well for so long now?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like this team is going to stick around. I don't see it ever leaving the top 10 right now. And that was what we had talked about when they went into that losing streak. Will they be able to snap out of it and come back? And they did that. That is a testament of what this team can do. You get all that talent, and they're putting it together, and they now can come out of a slump and recover nicely, mind you, and put themselves back into the conversation, because right now they're in the conversation and possibly trying to overtake Carolina again. So they've gotten production from places that we really did not expect. First, Ryan Graves, when you're talking 16 points on the season, but his plus 31, he is playing unbelievably in his own end. And that is probably the reason why they snapped out of that losing streak, because of guys like Graves and Siegenthaler, who have just basically stood their ground and say, you know what, we're not going to let it get out of hand, and that's what has turned this team back into the winning team that they started out as. And this team's going to give some others some nightmares, especially if they're not as strong defensively, because this team can put the puck in the net. I mean, Jack Hughes has blossomed into an all-star player, and and they're getting it from Hishir. I don't know how to pronounce his name either. So,
Hey, all right, finally one for you.
these young kids have really, really grown to be stars, and I gotta say, Tomas Tatar and Palat are probably the biggest reasons why this team is this strong. You're getting guys that are veterans that know how to play the game, and Palat played on Tampa Bay, so he knows how to win, and he's brought that mentality to this team. And they've been great. They've really been great, and their plus minuses show it. You
Yeah,
only have what, two guys really, actually one guy, Miles Wood, is the only regular in the lineup that is a minus, and he's a -1.
yeah. So the changing coaching here has helped as well. We talk about some
Yep.
of the changes when it comes to having a veteran coach there. It seems to help with the young players. I think that's been a key here. And to your point, look, they were able to bounce back from a little bit of a losing streak
Yeah.
and come back. That shows a sign of resiliency that winning championship teams have. I'm not saying they're a championship team. So I don't want to start that whole thing, but what I'm saying is they have
Right.
an opportunity where they play very good defensively. They don't allow, you to score,
Yeah.
and then they can score as well. So a 2-1 game realistically for them would be fine. And
Yeah.
they can do that.
I think it might have been that loss to Boston that kind of turned it around because they went in to play Boston, and they're thinking, okay, well, let's turn it around against this good team, and they showed flashes of of times in that game where they seem to take control, and doing that against Boston is not easy to sustain an attack. And even though they came out with a loss in that game, it still showed them that they can play. And since then, it's been a different team, and seem to play like they did at the beginning of the season, and that might have gotten things going. Just showing flashes in a game, that they can play with the best team, and
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't
compete,
take much for a
right?
kid to figure it out, and they did. They
Listen,
did.
it's no different in boxing. Sometimes you take a punch, you think a guy's going to hit harder than he actually hits. Then
Yeah.
you realize, like, hey, all right, I could take his shots. And I think that's to your point. What New Jersey might
Right.
have done is said, look, we were competitive against Boston.
Right.
May not have won the game, but you were competitive enough to say, look, you know what? We can do this. We can be one
Right.
of those top echelon
Yeah.
teams.
And it only takes a couple of minutes at the end of the game when you're dominating at the end of that game, and you're like, oh, well, if we would have done this the whole game, it could have been different. And that's the right way to think, because yes, everybody's going to lose games. We know this, but it's what you do after a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree. So at 3, the Carolina Hurricanes, 27-9-8, a plus 21 on the season, 13-5-2 at home, 14-4-6 on the road, 5-3-2 in their last 10. Lost their last game in overtime. Their goals for is 141, which is 13th, 120 goals against, which is tied for 5th. Last 3 games, they beat Colorado 6-2, Pittsburgh 2-1, and then lost to Vancouver 4-3 in a shootout.
Right.
Next 3 at the Islanders, at Dallas, and Minnesota. So a couple of good games here for them coming up. Uh, Again, same similar thing. You're seeing a lot of production from guys that normally you would say, hey, shouldn't be leading the team. Was it Nikas? I always
Oh,
say his name wrong.
Natchez.
Nikas.
Natchez. Natchez.
39 points. Shevnevskov, Andrei Sheveknov. I knew it.
I can't.
19 goals. Go ahead. You could correct that one.
Andrei Svechnikov.
Svechnikov. What about
Svechnikov.
Sebastian Ahos? He led the team last year in points, goals, and assists. He leads the
Yeah.
team so far this year in assists, but not having the production when it comes to goals. Is there something that maybe he's not doing, or this team is kind of holding him back until the playoff push?
Yeah, I think it might be the transition game for this team, because when you look at the team, it is everything is fine in net, right? K- they're getting goaltending from Kachetkov, um, solid, right? And then you look at the defense. Their defense is playing really well, and you got Sky, Pesci, Slavin. You got all these guys, Chatfield. They're all playing well, right? So where is the goals coming from? And to me, it is they're just not as effective coming out of their end. So it's that transition game. Like, those defensemen are getting the puck out, but they're not making those outlet passes because, frankly, they're not as talented offensively as they were last season.
Yeah.
They're solid defensively, but they're not making those long passes. They can't connect on that because they're just not offensive players, to that point. Now, they have some guys that are starting to get there, like Sky and Pesci. Those guys are starting to get there. But, it is a process when you lose some of those top guys that are used to putting up that offensive punch on defense. But to me, it just looks like the transition game isn't there. Once they get it into the opponent's end, they do have that forechecking pressure and they can sustain it. It's just they don't have those defensemen, those mobile defensemen that are really doing good enough to get it out to them. And this falls really on guys like Brent Burns that should be better. Even though he's got 6 goals, 23 assists, and I'm criticizing that they need to get better, but that's that's the difference. It isn't as crisp coming out of their end. And that to me is what the difference is. So they're not as dominating as they were. So that's
And
that's yeah.
I would say this too, right? They're not scoring a lot of goals, but you think about the goaltending. Kuchekov, 10
Yeah.
4 and 5, 2.33 goals
Yep.
against, a 9.13 save percentage. And Rantanen, 10 2 and 3, 2.63 goals against, an 8.94 save percentage. So they're getting production from the goaltending. So even though they're not scoring as much, and some of the guys, to your
Right.
point, need to step up and probably put the puck in the net,
Yeah.
they're getting goaltending, which is, again, allowing them to win games because they're not giving up as many
Yeah.
points. So at number 2, this one definitely made a lot of people upset. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 27, 11, and 7, a plus 31, 16, 3, and 4 at home, 11, 8, and 3 on the road, 5, 4, and 1 in their last 10. They are on a 1-game winning streak. They're currently 7th in goals for with 152, 6th in goals against at 121. Last 3 games, they lost to Detroit 4-1, Boston 4-3, and then beat Florida 5-4 in overtime. Next 3 games are against Winnipeg, at Montreal, and the New York Islanders. As bad as they're struggling, Ron, I can say that this looks like one of the deepest teams. You got Mitchell Marner.
Look, they're not even that struggling. They're just inconsistent.
Yeah.
Like their last 4 games, they're 3-1 in their last 4 games. I mean, that's not so bad, you know. I mean, when you're looking at things like that, and who'd you lose to? You lost to what? Boston. I mean, they're the top team in the league. I mean, I don't know about you, but if you lose to Boston and it's only a 1-goal game, and that goal was scored in the last minute, I don't know. That's pretty good when you're playing Boston and you lose by a goal because of a goal in the last minute. Uh, you know, people can criticize all they want, but when it comes down to it, Toronto is right now the second best team because of lots of factors. First, they can put the puck in the net, you know, and that's the difference between them and Carolina right now. That's the difference. Because when you look at the goaltending, Samsonov is 5th in the league in goals against average, 2.33. Hey, what's wrong with that? You know, that there's nothing. There's nothing. And when you're looking at these defensemen, it's like all of a sudden the team that didn't have any defensemen now has, well, Giordano's playing pretty well. He's a plus 16, and Liljegren is a plus 19. Now, they might not be offensive juggernauts on defense,
But they
but
don't need
they're
that,
doing
right?
the job.
They don't need that, right? Mitch Marno, Nylander,
Yeah,
Austin Matthews, Tavares. I mean, they've got offensive firepower.
right. And you
That's
and that defense, like you look at them, Hole, Brody, Sandine, they're all plus 7 or more. I mean, this defensive core is actually played pretty well. And then when you throw in Samsonov with his goals against average going, hey, what is wrong? How do you not look at this team and actually say, if these guys do that job for the rest of the year, hey, this team can contend.
We talked about this with Toronto, and this is why I picked them as my favorite to win it all. I think they've got the offensive firepower, but they also have now a defensive mindset that's sixth overall in the league. They're getting production from the goaltending, which we said they needed, right? Because even Matt Murray, their backup, 11-5-2, 2.73
Yeah,
goals against, and a 911 save percentage. Like they're
right,
getting production all across the board, and they've got guys that can score. Their problem was defensively, could they stop teams from scoring
right.
against them? They seem to be doing that this season.
Yeah, well, having Giordano for a full season is probably helping that. Like he came in last season at the trade deadline. We all know what happened with that, and they failed in the first round again, right? But that Giordano is still pretty fresh. I mean, if you look at his numbers, and what they've accomplished as a team defense, that is impressive. And I think him being there throughout training camp and the whole season is really making a difference. It's no difference than any other trade. A lot of times those trades don't pan out until the following year.
Yeah, well, again, guys got to get comfortable understanding coaching system,
Right?
philosophies, playing with guys. It's all about timing and kind
Yeah.
of how guys like to play with each other.
And that and Giordano really had to give a whole new mentality to this Toronto team. Like how much did they really believe that they could win?
Yeah,
And he's changed that. He's changed that idea of them. Hey, you know, look what we can do. We don't go and get blown out because we can't handle the pressure now.
yeah, it's going to be interesting though. To your point, playoff
This just
time.
gives a whole new
That's when it's going to
wrinkle,
matter the
a whole new
postseason.
wrinkle to the East.
But can they sustain it in the playoffs in the postseason? If they can't, that's where you're going to see the struggles again. If
Yep.
they get down early, can they bounce back? But I truly like this team. I think this is a well placed spot for them right now. I mean, they're playing
You got a
very good
lot of
hockey.
talent on this team. And you had a guy that scored 60 goals that isn't going to hit that 60 goal plateau,
Yeah.
but yet they're still getting it from everywhere.
So we're on to our number one team, and that's the Boston Bruins. I know how excited you are to see that record 34-5-4.
It's just,
Is that
that's
not insane?
craziness. It's
Plus
craziness.
72 in the point differential on the season. 21-1-3 at home, 13-4-1 on the road, 7-1-2 in their last 10. They're on a 2-game winning streak. They've scored 166 points so far this season, which is second overall, only to Edmonton, who's first. Goals
Yeah.
against 94, which is number one. So they haven't even given up 100 goals yet on the season. Last 3 games, they lost to Seattle 3-0 at home. That was that first home loss, official home loss.
Yes.
Toronto, they beat 4-3 and then beat Philadelphia 6-0. Next 3 games at the Islanders, at the Rangers, and then San Jose at home. I could go on and on about how many guys are performing on this team, but David Pastrnak, 62 points, 35 goals, 27
crazy.
assists,
It is
just having a
crazy.
remarkable season. But then you get Marchand, who's chipping in 40 points, Bergeron, 35, Krejci, 34.
Now, think about how many games Marchand missed.
Yeah.
He's got 40 points in only 35 games.
Right? These guys are just unreal. And then even the guys, Taylor Hall, Jake DeBrusk, who's been out 30 points each, they're getting production all across the board. Lindholm plus 29 defensively has been one of the
Yeah.
better pickups. We talked about that trade, and now the second year of it.
You got to talk about Matt Grzelcyk, who's only played 39 of the games. He was out for a little bit, and he's a plus 25. And that's incredible. That is incredible. You look up and down that defensive core, and it's just stellar. It's stellar. Like
Stella.
they literally only have 5 guys that are minuses, and all 5 of those guys are basically substitutes. Jack Stugnica, who isn't even with the team anymore. Yuna Koppinen, who played 1 game. Zaboral, who's played only 14. Renouf, who played 1, and Strawman, who's only played 8. They're all gone from this team. They're all gone. Zaboral is basically watching as a spectator every game as a backup because he can't get into the lineup because the other 6 guys are just playing that well on defense. I mean, that's what this team has done. Like normally, you'd always have that one guy that you could interchange, but it hasn't been like that because they've been playing so well, and I don't see that relinquishing. I don't see it.
And then we got to talk about the goaltending. Linus Ullmark, 23-1, a 1.92 goals against, a 936 save percentage. And then Swayman as a backup, 10-3-2.
Yeah,
235. Yeah, right. A 912 save percentage. This team is third in power play percentage at 27.9 and number 1 against the penalty kills at 86.2. If there's a weakness to the Boston Bruins right now, Ron, what is it, and what do they need to do before the trade deadline to kind of shore that up? Or is there anything? Do you mess with the chemistry right now? They're playing so well. Do you bring a guy in? Do you get rid of a guy? Like at this point where Boston is, you're in a tough spot because they're playing so well and they're doing so many things well. They're scoring. They're playing defensively well. Their goaltending's playing great. Why change that? Why ruin that, right? Do you not ride this out now and just say, look, this is the team?
Look, if I was the Boston Bruins, if I did want to upgrade something, I would upgrade something you need for next season. And right now, what I would do if I was Boston, I would say, hey, let's go out and get another center. Well, let's try to get Horvat from Vancouver. And then you find a place for him, because you obviously want his scoring punch. So, you find a place for him on one of those top three lines, and you just drop somebody down to the 4th line for now. Because next season, look, I don't think Krejci will play another year.
Yeah.
I think Bergeron will, but if you went out and you got Bo Horvat from Vancouver and he's available, that would take care of this team for next season. and give you a guy that can really put up some numbers, and you can find places for him, you can find room.
So I will ask you this question as well. Are we seeing like an Aaron Judge situation where the Yankees kind of lowballed or took their time to sign him, and now you're seeing it with Pastrnak, who's having a career year where, I mean, if he keeps this pace up, I mean, he's going to score probably, right, almost 70 goals. Yeah, you know what I mean? 130 points. Is this going to cost the Boston Bruins more to kind of keep this guy?
It's going to.
Would you not, if you're the Boston Bruins organization right now, say, hey, let's try to work out a contract right now?
I think they're probably really close, and I think it might just be a matter of how many years they want to do. Let's face it, Bruins aren't one to way overspend. Because look, they are also taking a look at what they're going to need to do for next season, because they know they want to leave room just in case Bergeron does return, just in case Krejci does return, or a replacement for Krejci that they would probably trade for at the beginning.
Or is this something where, again, if they win it all, maybe they're looking at some hometown deals and seeing if that's a possibility of these guys trying to return one more season and say, hey, look,
and that's why I say
let's run it back.
It could be the length of contract. I mean, how old is Pastrnak? Like 26, something like that? 27? I don't know. Let me just take a look real quick. Let me take a look.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic because, to your point, if they win
26, so I was right.
If 26. They win it all, right, they may say, look, some of those guys, maybe a Bergeron, maybe a Krejci, say, look, we'll come back at a lesser deal, give Pastrnak his money and run it back.
Sort of like what they did this year.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out. So let's look at this list again and then kind of go with who may not be on it next week. So at 10 was the Minnesota Wild, at 9, the Seattle Kraken, at 8, the New York Rangers, at 7, the Dallas Stars, at 6, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Winnipeg Jets coming at 5, the New Jersey Devils at 4, Carolina Hurricanes at 3, Toronto Maple Leafs at 2, and the Boston Bruins remain at number 1, Ron.
Yeah.
If there's teams to watch out for or teams that you say, look, may not be on this list next week, what teams should we be looking at?
Look, I'd probably look at Seattle and Minnesota. They're the number 9 and 10 teams. And considering those top 8 stayed exactly the same 2 weeks in a row, I don't see one of those teams falling out. But, Seattle and Minnesota would probably be the logical ones. And chasing them, not in any particular order, LA Kings, Washington, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Calgary, Colorado, Edmonton. Actually, that was in order, but
yeah, it'll be
those teams. They're good teams, and they could get in there, but they're not playing consistent. They're all over the place. So
yeah, and we talked about Colorado slowly is starting to come out of it, so it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of make that move now. And again,
Edmonton just had a week 3-0 last week. Yeah. So, I mean, if they figure out how to play some defense,
yeah, which we said again, another one of those teams that is always consistently.
Yeah, we put Toronto. Toronto and Edmonton were in that same boat, right? Okay, you need some defense and you need a goaltender, right? Well, Toronto right now looks like it's figuring that out.
Edmonton, not so much.
Not so much. Not so much.
Ron, so I want to thank you for your hockey insight. I thought this was probably one of the best lists we've had in quite some time. I appreciate all the insight.
And we broke it down like incredibly.
Yes. So I will say we do this every single week. Every Tuesday, the NHL rankings come out. Check us out on our social media platforms. If you follow that ticker down at the bottom, it'll tell you how you can do that. We do our normally broadcasted show every Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We cover all of the top sports stories going on in the world today. So really excited about this week's show. Again, we got NFL playoffs we're going to talk about. Obviously, NHL and the All-Star break coming up soon. So we'll kind of break some of that down and the Boston Bruins success. We cover NBA. We cover the MLB. So we will continue to do all of that in all of our segments, the pick and roll, face off, triple play, so much fun. Predictions, which, again, Ron is taking some wins again, my friend, this week. So we will see you on Friday night. Join us live on Rhode Island Broadcasting, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that. Continue to share and follow us on all our social media platforms as well, especially this show. We love doing this hockey show. We're getting good responses. All our Reddit group out there, I know you're watching. I know that you're critiquing. So let us know how we're doing as well.
Diggs,
thanks for joining tonight. Oh, today, actually. I'm so used to doing it at night. Yeah. So I will see you Friday, my friend. You take care. And all we ever ask for is peace on earth.
Have a good day.